Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about financial freedom and building generational wealth. And we're going to be looking at You Deserve to Be Rich by Rashad Bilal and Troy Millings.
I think it's really interesting that this book sort of starts out by addressing financial trauma before it even gets into like investing and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. It's not your typical get-rich book.
Yeah,
So can we talk a little bit about what they mean by financial trauma?
sure. So they say that a lot of people experience financial trauma based on past experiences, maybe stemming from like systemic things like discriminatory housing policies, things like that, or like major events like the Freedmen's Bank failure. And that has like a really deep impact on people's view of money and their habits surrounding money.
I see. And that trauma can manifest in a lot of different ways, right?
Definitely. Some people might hoard cash because they're fearful of losing it, or some people might overspend because they're trying to, prove their success to themselves or to the world.
Makes sense. The book really brings these ideas to life through personal stories, too. Like Troy Millings talks about his family losing their home.
Exactly. And that was like a huge turning point for him in terms of his own relationship with money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do we move past this trauma and toward a healthier relationship with money?
Well, that's where they introduced this framework called the EYL money principle. So basically, it's about dividing your income 55% for spending, 25% for saving, 10% for sharing or giving back, and 10% for investing.
Okay. But is that really feasible for everyone? I mean, what about people who are struggling to make ends meet or living paycheck to paycheck?
That's a great question. And the authors acknowledge that, not everyone's circumstances are the same, but the point of the EYL principle is that it's adaptable. And they give examples of people like Sonia, who is a single mom who is making $14 an hour and managed to achieve financial stability, or Tracy, who is working her way out of debt while trying to build a better future.
So it's more about a philosophy of being intentional with your money than about strict percentages. And speaking of being intentional with your money, this principle also touches on investing. So what kind of insights do the authors offer about that?
Well, they explore a wide range of investment options, from the traditional stocks and bonds to more unconventional things like real estate, commodities, and even luxury goods.
Interesting. So it seems like it's really about understanding your risk tolerance and choosing investments that align with your personal goals and timeline.
Absolutely. And they give a lot of specific examples too, like Bashir, who invested in a food truck
Hmm.
and ended up making a significant profit from it.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. It seems like they're trying to show that there's no one right way to invest. It's about finding what works for you.
Right. They also delve into more complex concepts like asset allocation, which is basically about spreading your investments across different asset classes to manage risk and potentially maximize your returns.
So it's not just about putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Now, all this talk about investing makes me think about scams, especially with the rise of all these online investment platforms.
Yep.
Do the authors address that at all?
Definitely. They actually dedicate a whole section to warning people about investment scams and teaching them how to spot red flags.
Like what?
Well, things like unrealistic promises, high pressure tactics, and demands for upfront payments. They even break down common types of scams like affinity group fraud, which is where scammers target specific communities, and pyramid schemes, which rely on recruiting new members to make money.
Hmm. It sounds like knowledge is power when it comes to protecting yourself financially.
Without a doubt.
Now, shifting gears a bit, what about entrepreneurship? Does the book explore that as a path to financial freedom?
They do, and they highlight both traditional and digital entrepreneurship as viable options.
That's interesting. Can you give us some examples?
Sure. They talk about Samaj, who started a mobile fitness company from scratch and built it into a successful business.
Wow. So it's about identifying a need in the market and having a clear value proposition.
Exactly.
But running a business, whether it's online or offline, can be really challenging. Do they talk about the downsides at all?
Oh, definitely. They emphasize that entrepreneurship requires a lot of planning and hard work, and that you have to be prepared for the ups and downs. They talk about the importance of understanding your target market, having a solid business plan, and managing your finances effectively.
So it's not just about having a great idea. It's about having the skills and the dedication to turn that idea into a reality.
Precisely.
Now, with all this focus on individual endeavors, I'm curious about how relationships play into our financial lives. Do the authors address that at all?
Absolutely. They dedicate a whole chapter to navigating finances within families and romantic relationships.
I imagine that can be a tricky area.
It can be. They use the example of Gary and Morgan, who are a couple with very different spending habits, and that creates a lot of tension in their relationship.
That's a good reminder that financial compatibility is important in any relationship.
Definitely.
So what do they suggest for couples or families who are struggling with financial issues?
They really emphasize open and honest communication setting, shared financial goals, and practicing financial maturity when it comes to things like lending money to loved ones.
It sounds like it's about finding a balance between taking care of your own financial well-being and supporting the people you care about.
Exactly.
And speaking of supporting the people you care about, the authors also delve into the idea of generational wealth and leaving a legacy, right?
They do. And they talk about estate planning tools like wills, trusts, and life insurance.
So it's about making sure that your hard-earned money goes to the people and causes you care about.
Right. And they use the story of Helen, who not only secured her family's financial future, but also established a scholarship fund to help others.
Wow, that's really inspiring. It seems like generational wealth is about more than just money. It's about creating opportunities for future generations.
Exactly. And they also talk about the pressure that can come with being the one who made it in your family or community.
The pressure to support everyone else.
Right. They call it the other tax.
That's a great way to put it. So how do they suggest dealing with that pressure?
They say it's about setting boundaries, managing expectations, and finding ways to give back that are sustainable for you.
So it's about protecting your own financial and emotional well-being while still being generous.
Exactly.
Wow. This has been a really insightful conversation so far. It's incredible how the authors managed to weave together all these different aspects of personal finance into a cohesive narrative.
I agree. They really take a holistic approach to financial well-being.
Before we move on to talking about specific investment strategies in more detail, is there a way we can sort of summarize the key principles we've covered so far?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, it's about acknowledging and addressing any financial trauma you might have experienced, because that can have a huge impact on your relationship with money.
Right, that's like the foundation for everything else.
Exactly. Then there's the EYL money principle, which is a framework for being intentional with your income and making sure you're allocating it in a way that supports your goals.
And we talked about the importance of understanding different investment options and choosing ones that align with your risk tolerance and your goals.
Right. And of course, we can't forget about being vigilant against scams.
Absolutely. The authors really stressed that.
And they also highlighted entrepreneurship as a viable path to financial freedom, both in traditional and digital spaces.
And we touched on the importance of communication and financial compatibility in relationships.
Yes. And finally, we discussed the idea of planning for the future through estate planning and managing the pressures that can come with financial success.
Wow. It's amazing how they've managed to cover so much ground in this book.
It's a truly comprehensive guide.
Well, you ready to dive into those investment strategies now?
Absolutely. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of building wealth. All right, so let's unpack some of those investment strategies that they talk about in the book. They start with stocks. So basically, when you buy a stock, you're buying a tiny little piece of ownership in a company.
Okay, so you're basically betting on a company's success, hoping that its value goes up and you make some money.
Exactly. They talk about diversifying your stock portfolio, meaning investing in different companies across various sectors. They suggest exploring what they call the big six, which are like the major driving forces of the stock market.
And what are those?
Communications, consumer goods, financials, healthcare industrials, and information technology.
Okay, makes sense. So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Right. Diversification helps to spread the risk.
Now, what about bonds? Those seem a little less risky than stocks.
So bonds are essentially loans that you make to governments or corporations, and they agree to repay you with interest over a certain period of time.
I see. So it's like you're lending them money.
Exactly. And they tend to offer a more steady stream of income, but with potentially lower growth compared to stocks.
So it's a trade-off between stability and potential return.
Exactly.
They also mention mutual funds and ETFs in the book. Those seem a little more complicated.
They can be, but they're also really valuable tools, especially for people who are new to investing. So mutual funds basically pool money from multiple investors to buy a diversified portfolio of assets managed by professionals.
So it's like a way to get instant diversification without having to pick individual stocks or bonds yourself.
Exactly. ETFs are similar to mutual funds, but they're traded on stock exchanges like individual stocks.
Interesting. So it's like a more flexible option.
Right. And they tend to have lower fees than mutual funds.
Okay. And they also talk about fixed deposits, which are like savings accounts with a fixed interest rate for a set period of time, right?
Exactly. Those are considered pretty low risk, but the growth potential is usually limited compared to other investments.
Okay. So it's like a safe place to park your money if you're
Mm.
not ready to take on more risk.
Exactly.
Real estate is another popular investment. What insights do they share about that?
They definitely see real estate as a powerful way to build wealth.
Hmm.
Um, you can earn rental income and also potentially benefit from the appreciation of the property value over time.
So it's like a 2-for-1.
Right. They touch on different approaches like owning rental properties or flipping houses for profit.
But real estate investing also has its challenges, right?
Definitely. They caution against things like overpaying for properties, underestimating renovation costs, and neglecting things like property taxes and maintenance expenses.
So it's not as simple as just buying any property and hoping for the best.
Right. They emphasize the importance of doing thorough research and understanding the local market.
Strategic planning is key.
Absolutely.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. They even talk about investing in things like commodities and luxury goods.
Right. So that would be things like gold, oil, art, vintage collectibles.
Now, that's pretty unconventional.
It is. They present it as a way to potentially hedge against inflation and further diversify your portfolio. But they also stress that these are very high-risk, high-reward investments.
So not for the faint of heart.
Exactly.
Okay, so with all these different investment options out there,
Mhm.
how do they suggest people navigate this complex world?
Well, they introduce the concept of asset allocation, which is essentially about dividing your investments among different asset classes based on your risk tolerance and your financial goals.
Right, so someone with a higher risk tolerance might lean more towards stocks, while someone looking for stability might prefer bonds or fixed deposits.
Exactly. They have this thing called the EYL Investment Blueprint, which actually lays out different asset allocation models based on your risk level. So there's a conservative model, a moderate model, and an aggressive model.
Oh, wow. So it's like a roadmap for building your own personalized investment strategy.
Exactly.
That's really cool. And they also talk about the importance of optimizing your taxes to protect your wealth.
Definitely. They highlight how strategic asset allocation can actually impact your tax liability.
So it's not just about how much money you make, but how much you get to keep.
Right. They suggest things like holding certain assets in tax-deferred accounts like 401ks or IRAs, while others might be better suited for taxable accounts.
So it's about making smart decisions to maximize your returns and minimize your tax burden. Okay, so we've talked about stocks, bonds, real estate commodities, even luxury goods. What about the entrepreneurial journey? What were some of the key takeaways for you from that section of the book?
I really appreciated their emphasis on the fact that entrepreneurship is a process. It takes planning, dedication, and resilience. They share the story of Samaj, who built a fitness company from scratch, and it really highlights both the rewards and the challenges that come with being an entrepreneur.
We talk a lot about identifying a need in the market, having a clear value proposition, and being prepared for the demands of running a business, right?
Absolutely. And I think their discussion of the rise of digital and social entrepreneurship is super relevant in today's world.
Definitely. I mean, we're living in the digital age.
Right. They talk about things like online businesses, content creation, social media marketing, online community building.
So it's about leveraging your skills and passions in the digital realm.
Exactly.
But they also stress the importance of having structure, even in a digital venture.
Absolutely. They talk about the need for a business plan, understanding your audience, and using effective marketing strategies.
So it's not just about posting random stuff online. It's about treating your online presence as a legitimate business.
Exactly. And they also cover the legal and financial aspects of running a business, like taxes, contracts, setting up retirement plans. They really encourage people to seek professional guidance when needed.
So it's about setting yourself up for long-term success and sustainability.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about the more emotional and interpersonal side of money.
Hmm?
How do they address the role that relationships play in our financial lives?
They dedicate a whole chapter to that, actually. They acknowledge that it can be a really complex area, and they share the story of Gary and Morgan, who are a couple struggling with their different spending habits.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that financial compatibility is really important in relationships.
Definitely. And they offer some great advice for couples or families who are dealing with financial disagreements.
Like what?
They really advocate for open communication settings, shared financial goals, and practicing financial maturity when it comes to lending money to loved ones.
It's about finding that balance between protecting yourself financially and supporting the people you care about.
Exactly.
And they even talk about prenuptial agreements.
Right. It's a sensitive topic, but they present it as a way to protect both partners' financial interests, especially in the event of a divorce.
So it's about having those tough conversations up front to avoid potential complications down the road. What
Exactly.
about their thoughts on generational wealth?
They really emphasize the importance of estate planning to ensure that your wealth benefits future generations. They talk about tools like wills, trusts, and life insurance.
It's about protecting your legacy and providing for your loved ones.
Right. But they also talk about generational wealth as being about more than just money. It's about creating opportunities for future generations, fostering financial literacy, empowering them to make smart financial decisions.
It's about leaving a lasting impact. And they also address the pressure that can come with financial success, especially in certain communities.
Right. They call it the other tax. It's that feeling of obligation to support everyone else once you've made it.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people experience but don't always talk about.
Right. And they offer some really helpful advice for navigating that pressure.
Like what?
They talk about the importance of setting boundaries, managing expectations, and finding ways to give back that align with your values and your goals.
So it's about protecting your own financial and emotional well-being while still being generous.
Exactly.
Okay, so they've covered a lot of ground here. Investments, entrepreneurship, relationships, generational wealth. What really stood out to you from all of this?
That's a great question. For me, it was their emphasis on mindset. I thought that was really powerful.
Mindset.
It's not just about the technical stuff, like budgeting and investing. It's also about shifting your beliefs and your attitudes towards money.
Hmm. So it's like an internal game as much as an external one.
Exactly. They talk a lot about acknowledging and healing from financial trauma, which I think can be really transformative. And they also emphasize the importance of developing financial maturity, which allows you to have those open and honest conversations about money that we were talking about earlier.
And they really acknowledge the fear and the anxiety that a lot of people have around money, especially if they've experienced hardship or financial insecurity in the past.
Definitely. And they encourage you to shift from those negative thoughts to a more empowered perspective.
So it's about reclaiming your financial narrative.
Exactly. It's about moving from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance and possibility.
And I think the EYL money principle really embodies that shift. It's not just a budgeting tool, it's a whole philosophy for living intentionally with your money.
Right. It's about aligning your spending with your values and making sure you're prioritizing savings, sharing, and investing.
And they offer a lot of practical guidance for actually implementing the EYL principle too.
Oh, definitely. They talk about setting clear financial goals, creating a detailed budget, tracking your progress, even automating your savings and bill payments to make things easier.
They also talk about the importance of building a financial team.
Right, like surrounding yourself with experts who can offer valuable insights and advice, financial advisors, tax professionals, mentors, people like that.
So you don't have to do it all alone.
Exactly. There are resources and support systems out there to help you.
Now, they also have a whole section on achieving your first million, which I found really interesting.
Me too. It's a really cool blend of practical advice and inspiration.
So what were some of the key takeaways for you from that section?
Well, they really underscored the importance of setting ambitious goals, having a clear plan, and remaining persistent no matter what challenges you face. They also emphasized the importance of continuous learning, adapting to changes in the market, and seeking mentorship from people who've already achieved what you're striving for.
So it's not just about luck. It's about hard work, dedication, and strategy.
Exactly. And they also talk about the mindset shift that often needs to happen when you reach significant financial milestones.
Like staying grounded and remembering your values.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about using your wealth for positive impact and not letting it change who you are at your core.
It's a good reminder that financial freedom is about more than just money. It's about living a more fulfilling and purposeful life.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of all the wisdom that's packed into this book.
I agree. There's so much valuable information here for anyone who's looking to improve their financial well-being.
As we wrap up this conversation, is there one key takeaway that you think will resonate with our listeners and inspire them to take action?
I think the most empowering message in this book is that you deserve to be rich. And I don't just mean financially. I mean rich in experiences, relationships, and the freedom to pursue your passions.
I love that.
This book offers a roadmap, but the journey starts with you. It starts with believing in yourself and taking those first steps towards financial empowerment.
Those are powerful words. I think a lot of people need to hear that. It's a journey, not a race. And every step you take, every bit of knowledge you gain, brings you closer to your goals.
Exactly. So start today and watch the transformation unfold.
Now, before we sign off, I know you wanted to share a concise list of the key principles we've covered today.
Oh, right. So here are 10 principles to remember from You Deserve to Be Rich. Acknowledge and heal from any financial trauma you might have experienced. Implement the EYL money principle. Understand and explore different investment opportunities. Remain vigilant against scams. Consider entrepreneurship as a path to financial freedom. Communicate openly and honestly with your loved ones about finances. Plan for the future through estate planning. Manage the pressures of success. Seek professional guidance when needed. And finally, believe in yourself and your ability to achieve financial freedom.
Those are excellent guideposts to keep in mind as you embark on your own financial journey. And to our listeners, we challenge you. Envision yourself a year from now. What financial achievements will you have made? Take action today and make that vision a reality.
Financial freedom is within your reach. The journey begins with a single step. Take that step today.
Well said.
Ah.
Until next time, keep diving deep and striving for a richer life in every sense of the word.